Hey guys, and welcome to the War of Imperium guide. A lot of people have been asking, how do you best perform in War of Imperium? How do we prepare for War of Imperium? And I know a lot of people have not played in the previous versions or don't have a lot of experience. My job here today is to teach everybody how I would do War of Imperium my way and what I think is the best way to do it. And hopefully the goal here is to increase everybody's skill level who has not experienced WoW yet or is not quite aware of how War of Imperium operates in Ragnarok Origin, and hopefully you come out of this video being a better player when it comes to War of Imperium. Alright, so there's two main things that you need to focus on when it comes to War of Imperium. The first thing is organization, right? If you're not organized to some degree, at the very least, you're going to be struggling a lot. You're going to be like a headless chicken running around, not knowing what to do. And the same will go for the rest of your guild, especially if you're a guild leader. What do we mean by organization? It's class composition per party, class priorities, aka having your geared members on classes that will impact your defense or offense the most. A lot of this responsibility though falls onto your officers and your main core members. If your officers are not willing to bite the bullet and roll classes that you need, you kind of have to think of it this way, where it's like, if you're not willing to do it, then how could you expect your members to do it unless you recruit the classes that you need beforehand, right? And this is really crucial when you're lacking AoE classes for the most part, because fundamentally, if you don't have enough AoE classes, your offense and your defense will not work. It will have so many holes in your defenses. Also, don't worry if you are having trouble organizing your parties or what have you. I actually have a template prepared in advance, and I'll pop it up on top on your screen there. I'm going to link this in the comments and pin it so everybody who wants to use it and kind of wants to like use this as like a party composition can duplicate this and use it for your own guild. The second part of what you need is discipline. Without discipline, no matter how organized you try to be, no matter how good of a shot caller you have, none of it matters when nobody listens, when nobody is disciplined enough to know what they're supposed to do and actually stick to that. We're going to show an example of that later as to where like discipline comes into play, so you can actually have a visual representation of why discipline is incredibly important. Now, with the castles that we have, we are gonna be having Prontera and Geffen. And this section of the video, I'm going to show you the key places where you can defend when you're in defense mode in Prontera and Geffen. Okay, so first off, this one's going to be pretty simple. This is the first floor of Prontera. So there's going to be 4 castles in Prontera from what we've seen so far that they're going to be releasing. So what's going to happen is you don't have to worry about like the appearance of each castle. It's not like RO1 where each castle has its own layout. All the castles are very similar to each other in how they look, what their layout is. So you only have to really focus on one map. The first floor of Prontera City, the major point that you defend on is this point right here, right? This right here is your first major choke point. This is the first major choke point. There's a bench in this right on the northern side of this choke point right here. The key to your defense is, for your defense line, is to never go past that bench. Because if you do, that means you're in the kill zone. You never want to be in the kill zone. The whole point of a choke point is that it is the zone where it bottlenecks the enemies, right? It makes it so your AoEs don't have to be as spread apart, right? So that makes it very easy to defend, whether you have just a little bit of AoE or you have a lot of AoE, right? So you always want to defend these choke points, and this is honestly the only real choke point that you can defend. Other features of the Prontera Castle is going to be the mechanics here, that there's like spikes that come out of the ground. It doesn't really do a lot of damage. There's also cannons on this, like the top right here, that you can get to from the Emperium room, or you can go through these like portals over here, right, in this area. The cannons, they don't really seem to be all that effective because you can reach this range right here, right, in number 3 here, because there's a gate right around this area. But the thing is, like, if people are spawning and trying to, and they're spawning here when they go inside the castle, they are invulnerable. You can't kill them. You can't even CC them. That's the thing. It's not like RO1 where you defend right on the portal, you AoE the portal, and everybody goes in, gets damage. It doesn't work that way in Rue. They will have protection, and if you defend right by a portal, they can just be invulnerable and throw an AoE right on top of you, and you can't kill them while they can kill you, right? So keep that in mind, right? Because they're gonna be going through here, right? That's a pathway that they'll take. They can also go through this pathway right here, and there's a barricade here, but they can easily destroy that, and then they can go over here. Okay. If you're on the attacking side, there are these things right here. See these icons? These are crystals. What happens is that you can destroy these crystals and they will unlock the passageway. Like this little gate that I told you about over here, that unlocks as well. And if you do that on the second floor, that unlocks the respawn point on the second floor, as well as opens one of the gates on the second floor as well. So it's easier for you to go on offense if you push back the defending guild to the Emperium room, for example, right? So to keep that in mind. If you lose on this defense right here on the first floor, you can easily, if you can regroup fast enough, you can defend on the second floor. But if you can't regroup fast enough, the third floor is actually the best spot to defend at for Prontera. And you'll see why after we go through the second floor. So the second floor here, which I'm showing you, again, you see these little things. These are the crystals right here that you can break. There's like little bombs here that you can pick up right around this area right here and other areas. And you just like drop it on the crystal and it kills it faster. It's way faster than having to like dropping a AoE on it or auto attacking it, because it doesn't do a lot of damage, right? And then after you get rid of this, it unlocks the respawn point that's located here. And then it opens up the gate that's closed in this section right here, right? Because unless you destroy these, the only way that you can reach these portals to the Emperium room is going through this area right here. You have to go through this here. This is the library, all right? You can go through here, or you can go through the kitchen, and you can go through here. The number 2 right there is a kitchen table, and this right here is a little winding area right here. They can get to that area right there, right? There's like little mechanics here. Like if you remember the quest where you have to like aim the prism like of light to open up a part of the quest, that's kind of where it is. That's kind of what this is. This area is right here, and it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. But if you're on the attacking team, these are going to be the areas that you're going to be attacking. If you're the defending guild, you usually would have, if you have enough members, if you're organized enough, you can have members defend this area right here, right? And you can defend it. You can have the other group defend this area right here. Obviously, that means you're splitting your group in two, and so you have to be able to respond with your flex teams beforehand, so that way you can reinforce the one that's getting attacked the most. And if all else fails and you get pushed to your Emperium room, I'm saying if all else fails, this right here is the Prontera Emperium room. Let me go ahead and zoom into this a little bit because it's a little smaller. This is your Emperium right here. This area right here is the spot that you spawn at when you go into your Emperium room from your guild hall. And if you're wondering where the portal is in your guild hall, it's going to be on the top left right here, as you can see. Yeah, just all you have to do is just go through here, and it'll take you to that spot that we mentioned earlier. And again, for your own members' sake, as much as you can, try to get Emperium buffs, because you need all the buffs that you can possibly take, and collectively as a guild, it all adds up. And I'm not sure if they're going to implement it here, but when they do, on the day of the War of Emperium, and there's a quest that expires a couple hours before the War of Emperium starts. What you want to do is you want to do these quests, because what they do is they gift out resources to the rest of your guild that you can use in the War of Emperium, whether it's like healing items or certain buffs and stuff like that. You just have to do a short quest, which is mostly auto. I'm not sure about this part if they're going to implement this one in the global War of Emperium, but I don't see why they wouldn't. Just pay attention to that. It's going to be in your quest list there. And speak of the devil, it's actually here already. So preparation for the War of Emperium, all you have to do is, it's called event quest on the left here. Just gotta click on that. It'll give you the quest. Just make sure that you follow this quest right here, and it's going to give you extra items. So while that is going on, let's proceed to the Emperium room. If you are the defending team, you do not want to defend here, right? Because they're going to spawn over here, and they're going to walk here. They're going to be invincible right around the time that they gather on this point right here by 2. If they just keep running, you won't be able to kill them. Where you want to defend is, however, you want to defend in this right here. There's this little tiny bridge right here. You want to defend this choke point. You want to get AoEs here and AoEs here as well, right? You want to make sure that you have AoEs there. And the most peculiar thing about Prontera Emperium room and why it's easy to defend and a little bit tough to attack is, even though it's split into two choke points that you have to defend at in the Emp room, you see these little gaps right here in the middle? like all these like the same color, like these grayish gaps right here that you see, including the ones over here, right? If the enemy team falls in these cracks, they go down to what is called the gulag. It's like the basement floor, and they have to get out of the portals, which will let them go out of these. If you were curious what these portals are, they go through these portals right here, and they're back at the beginning here, right? So they get out of these portals. It's a good way for attackers to maybe do a little fake, try to, you know, recover or regroup in the gulag or whatever. But the thing that makes this easy for defenders is if your defense line is over here and you have AoEs on this point right here, right, as they're trying to get through here. This little crevice that you see here, even though the enemy falls through there, allies and your own guild members will actually be able to step on these without falling over. So what that does is, if you have your defense line here and you're defending with your AoEs over here, your flankers or your flank team or your flex team can actually run around, walk onto this area right here, AoE them from behind, and effectively pincer attack them with very little to no repercussions. Because if they die and they have to respawn to the second floor, your team only has to spawn over here, and then they get into this portal, and then they spawn right on top here, right? And they can easily get back into the fight right away, right? They can just easily get back into the fight. I mean, they don't even have to go that long. They could just cross through here. And then if you manage to push the enemy back all the way to the second floor or the third floor, there's also portals on the side here that will port you out to either the inner city or the outer city, right? So those are the very crucial points of War of Emperium. And if you're the attacker and you manage to go through, you can either push from here or push from here. Or my own advice is you want to regroup you need to get your group through here, so you're not like stuck in this like little choke point where people can like go over here or go over here, or even like hit you from behind over here. You want to go through the 5 here, because there's actually no spot here, even though it says it's like blank here. There's actually no way that they can just reach out to you. They would have to step into this area to actually defend against you. And the choke point here is way wider. The stairs here is way wider than the ones over here. So that is basically a quick summary of the Prontera castle. Now let's move on to the Geffen castle, which is arguably the easiest one to defend out of all the castles, in my opinion at least, because of what we call the wind tunnel. When you get into the castle, you're going to be spawning over here, and you're going to have to run all the way here to 4, and then to 5, to 6. When War of Emperium first starts, you don't want to go through this area right here, because I know it says like, right, this is the portal to the second floor. This is right, the portal to the second floor right here. This one, and there's like this little side area with the traps and everything. And these are the crystals, obviously. Again, concept of crystals, that means there's a closed gate. This is the closed gate right here. So don't get faked into thinking that this area is where you can go. It's like you might want to go here and you think you can go through here. No, like this gate is closed. You have to go through here. Go to 5, go to 6, which is the wind tunnel. This whole stretch right here is the wind tunnel. And then you want to go to the second floor, right? So for the attacking team, it is a little bit tougher, because if you want to go through here, this is called the wind tunnel. You'll see that later. I'll put a example of that later. And when you're the defending team, you want to defend at this point right here, right? And you want to put your AoEs over here. That way, it's harder for them to push, as long as you have a disciplined group of people and you have enough AoEs and you have the right class composition to be able to defend. And that's why Geffen is like one of the hardest castles to really attack compared to everything else. And after, let's say that you do end up getting pushed back to your second floor. This is going to be the second floor, right? So this portal right here is where you get in when you get to that left portal, and this is the right portal that you get in. If you go into that right portal, there's like some traps that are in here. I'm not sure how they're going to how strong they're going to make these traps over here, but we'll find out when War of Emperium actually starts. See if they've tweaked it or rebalanced it or made it a little bit stronger. But it's the same situation as the Prontera second floor, except it's actually way easier to defend the second floor, right? Because all you have to do, if the attacking team attacks the second floor, this gate right here, again, this is the closed gate. So they either have to go through the right portal and go through here, and as you can see, that is a very long choke point. And you can, the thing with choke points is if there's a very long choke point there, and with traps there, it's very easy to defend. So you can have a squad over there defending, and at the same time, if they want to go through the left side, they have to go through this area right here, down these stairs, go all the way, snake through here, all the way here, all the way here, and all the way here. And as you can see, this whole area is a choke point, right? Like, you can actually have people up here AoEing down to this area, which covers half of this choke point already. So if you have a line of people AoEing up here already, like one of your squads, right? Like your mid squad, for example, which I'm going to explain later, you can actually have the rest of your AoEs AoEing on the left side here, thus making it easier to defend. And let's say that's they also get through their defense line on the second floor, because it does happen, and it will happen to a lot of the guilds, right? Now the enemy has two choices. They can either go through here, or they can go through here, right? And then we'll take this all the way to the third floor now. And here we are at the Emperium room. Once you get to enter the left portal that I showed you in the second floor, you're gonna be in here. And if you enter to the right side of the portal, which a lot of people actually didn't know before, you get through this portal right here. So what is the point of those two portals? It is to keep the enemy on their toes. You could come from like a couple angles here to catch them off guard. So if they're undisciplined and they don't have people assigned to certain choke points, then you will get through their defenses. When you are in the defense team, or you're in the Imperium room and you go inside that portal in your guild hall, you'll be in here, and you have to go through this portal right here, and then it'll lead you straight to the Imperium as well, right? So when you're in the defending team, you want to defend this choke point right here, and you also want to make sure that you have defenses for this choke point right here. Now the key thing about this is, like, people that are on this side can AoE here, and same thing, people on this side can AoE here as well. And that's just something that you have to look out for, because if your defense is here, then you might want to back off a little bit here to the top here and start AoEing on this side right here, right? Or you could like set your defenses over to this side and defend here, and just be on the lookout, have a scout on the lookout for people in case they enter this area over here, right? If you are pushed back all the way to your Imperium room, the mechanics in this one is there's like lasers on these sides right here. These choke points, there's lasers here, and they activate, and they can actually kill people. So you want to take advantage of that as much as you can. This is your Imperium right here, and if you get pushed back all the way to Imperium, you want to defend this choke point right here, right? And you want to make sure that the majority of your stack is straight down the middle here, defending. The reason why you don't want to have people on this side and people on this side is because the attacking team could easily have members on the lower floors over here, and then throw AoEs right on top. And that's why you want to stay in the middle here, because it's probably the safest part of the Imperium room that you can defend at. If the defending team dies, you spawn here. This is a closed gate. Attacking teams cannot go through here, right? So you spawn here, and then you exit here, and then you try to flank them over here if they're attacking your Emp room. Now, if you're an attacking team, you might want to set aside another team to prevent people from getting out of this right here, because when they spawn here and they get through this gate, they're not going to be invulnerable. So they could treat this as a choke point, and now you're playing defense against them so that they can't flank your other team, right? So basically that is the quick overview of the Prontera and the Geffen castles. We're gonna move on to probably one of the most asked questions on stream, especially, is what are the best classes for War of Imperium? Well, one of the best classes for War of Imperium is obviously priests, right? You need supports. You need priests because they can be your support, and they can be your Magnus priest as well, especially with the Magnus exorcism root core. It's very good for defense, right? It roots people, and if you're stuck in that spot with a ton of AoEs, because the way that AoEs work in Ragnarok Online Origin is if you stack AoEs, the damage stacks as well. So let's say you have 10 free-to-play wizards, right? So let's say like 10 free-to-play wizards, let's say that each of them can put down 3 gravity fields. They put down 3 gravity fields, that's 30 gravity fields. Those 30 stacked gravity fields in that one spot, soon as somebody steps on it, they're gonna receive 30 ticks of gravity field. That's how important wizards are, even if you're free to play. Now, what makes that very dangerous is the fact that a lot of those gravity fields, they could be doing damage. They could have a Hydra and a Scale Worker for more damage in War of Imperium, but at the same time, those wizards could also be wearing Requiem cards or Metal Lord cards or Magnolia cards. So you could get silenced, you could get feared, you could get cursed, and all sorts of trouble. And all those CCs combined, there you can't really card against those. You can card against fear, but then you'll get hit with a silence and a curse, or vice versa. You could card for the other ones, and then you can't counter the other ones as well. And then you use your Panacea, and then your Panacea is on cooldown for 10 seconds. The question is, can you survive within those 10 seconds while you're sitting on that AoE while CC'd? Chances are you cannot. And that's why that is so crucial that Gravity Field Wizards are part of your defense line. And obviously, you can also have utility wizards that can put Stormgust on the base of your defense, because of the fact that, like, if somebody does try to get through and they get bounced around by a Stormgust when they get through like 2 layers of your defense, then all of a sudden that could be a stoppage point, so that your ADL hunters or your, if you have knights, if they have CC cards especially, they can CC lock somebody even if they get through your defense line. That's why that whole setup and people knowing their roles is very important. So again, after Gravity Field Wizards and Wizards in general, after your Priests, you also have your Paladins, Devo. Okay, so let me explain the importance of having Devo. Not only is the obvious part of them helping your AoEs and your carries survive longer, if you notice the statue skill for the red statue, there's a huge AoE that people could use to somehow bypass like the AoE lines that you have. If that hits your defense line and majority of your wizards fall, and let's say that your priest in the back may or may not take time, and that's a risk you do not want to take to res them. If you take too long, or your priest lag, they take too long to res, or res gets bugged or whatever, and they can't get your wizards up on time and your defense line falls, then you might get pushed into. But if you have Devo Paladins, if you have your full supports and your supports in the back healing those Paladins because they're tethered away, they're not getting hit by those AoEs, then your wizards will survive. So now you don't have to worry about chancing it with your AoE lines. Once your Paladins start receiving the damage, the full supports, which probably have Sanctuary on top of them already, plus the heals that are going to come in with them as well, and then your wizards are not going to die, your Paladins are not going to die, and if they have to die, they will die first, and it just gives you a higher chance of maintaining your defense lines and not having them fall and not have any breaks in your ranks, right? So that's why Devo Paladins are so crucial to your defense lines. And the next class as well is the Champions. Now, Champions are probably the best classes for Emp defense, because they want to kill other classes that get through as fast as possible, and they're the most reliable class to ever do that. They have Ruach built in, they have a single target burst skill that will almost always one-shot people unless they get gapped too far in like gear. That prevents them from tapping your Emp, because if you don't know, if your Emperium gets tapped or receives any form of damage from the enemy team, it resets your timer. And that is crucial because you'll notice 2 timers at the top of your screen, the middle top of your screen once War of Imperium starts. One is the 1-hour timer for War of Imperium, and the other timer is for Perfect Defense. What Perfect Defense is, it's a much shorter timer compared to the hour-long timer of the War of Imperium, and if your Imperium doesn't get tapped within that time, then you would have perfectly defended that castle, which means that nobody can enter the castle and nobody can tap your Imperium or take your castle anymore. That means that you are now free to go over to another castle that hasn't been perfect defended, and you can still actually go on offense. The only thing that you have to worry about is the fact that, like, if you do take another castle, the castle that you perfect defended before gets reset. Nobody owns it anymore because you forfeited it by taking 1 castle. You can only take 1 castle at a time in Rue per guild. And that's something that you have to look out for. And the next type is, they're not out yet, but Bard and Dancer support types. I think I don't even need to quite explain their importance, but they have Braggy. They have the most important skill probably, which is like they have an AoE heal, Apple of Eden, and a wailed out like support Bard Dancer will help heal your whole stack to lessen the risk of your stack getting wiped even more, right? So they're very crucial. You just have to be careful of pros that decide to low-key your stack, and then all of a sudden your wizards can't cast skills anymore. So just watch out for that one. And now at a later date, sages will come out, and that will change the meta a little bit when it comes to War of Imperium. A lot of people are worried that like, hey, sages will make wizards become completely useless. That is actually not the case. It does make the War of Imperium more dynamic than it was previously before sages came in, when you don't have to worry about LPs and counter LPs, and you don't have to worry about that like little window in between when something gets LP'd. But at the same time, it makes it so other classes can also shine a little bit, like sharpshoot snipers or GT Synexes, where they can take charge of clearing the choke point before, you know, any counter LPs happen and AoEs get thrown in at the same time, right? So that is what sages are mostly good for, besides their really crazy single target damage. But you know, you don't want to dive into a choke point just to bolt somebody and then die yourself. So next part is Synexes. Now Synexes, once red cores become a thing, Synex with Grimtooth becomes a menace in War of Imperium, provided that they don't get nerfed hard in PvP. But let's be honest, a completely Giga Whaled Synex, even with the nerfs, will probably still be a complete menace and will still do a lot of hurt in PvP, right? So you can either have your Grimtooths with Devo be on the part of the front line, be part of your defense line, and use them to make up for the gap in defense that LP would create. Or you can have them as your flankers. That way, even if they have an LP play on you, you can actually have your flanker GT Synexes or flanker teams disrupt them. That way they can never achieve a full push against you. And then probably one of the last classes or if not the last class to come out, is going to be the Rogue. We don't have to worry about Rogue for a while, but the good thing about Rogue is, even though despite the fact that they're good at skirmishes, the most crucial skill that rogues have is a skill called Coerce. It's basically a charm skill. So what that does is, if one of their hyper carries is completely overextended, rogues expose that misplay so hard, because what they'll do is, let's say a whaled out wizard tries to go up for an AoE and he doesn't have Devo on him. He's overextended, he's cut off the Devo because he went too far forward. You can coerce him into your stack, kill him with your champs and your other, like your master smiths on your stack. That way he's cut off completely from support. He can't get rezzed. And then once that happens, he has no choice but to respawn, and that holds off their push that much more. So rogues, really good class for playmaking and exposing weaknesses that all the overextended players are making. And it's just a class that can, completely take somebody out of the game pretty much. So snipers, I probably have had the most questions with snipers when it comes to asking. Trapper snipers, you don't need a lot of them, but it is good to have them, to have traps in your backline. So there's that. And they can also throw traps into the choke point as well. Now you're limited to how many traps at a time you can put down, so just be wary of that per trap. And then the next one is probably the most popular build for snipers, which is your ADL or Agility Luck or AIL, whichever one you're building. In order for you to be effective, you need to understand your role. Your role is not to go into the choke point and auto attack somebody to death. That's not your role. That's for your AoEs. What you need to be aware of is the fact that you need to have sight on all the time, or your bird on all the time to watch out for stealth users or anybody that tries to get past your choke point. And you need to be equipped with CC cards, whether it be a Requiem or Meddler or what have you. And you need to be there on auto, just so as soon as they get past, your character automatically targets them and CC locks them and prevents them from going any further and potentially going over to the third floor and into your Emp room and tapping your Emp for a perfect defense timer reset, right? That's one thing that you should do. If you do that as an ADL, you become a very crucial asset to your guild that will actually prevent a lot of plays being made onto your Emp room to reset your timer. And then eventually, when red cores come out, we'll have access to the Wind God core. And what the Wind God core basically is, just makes sharpshoot the meta, decreases the cast time, damage, root, you name it. It's just a really good core. Especially the only downside is that you have to aim it. And if you're not whaled out enough, or you haven't spent enough, then that means that you probably will not do enough damage. And it feels bad because it's a skill that you have to aim. And if you don't have enough damage to like one shot somebody with the amount of burst that sharpshoot has, then your effectiveness drops drastically. So that's why I say when people ask me if sniper is good, then I always say that like sniper, you need to be a lot more invested than you are with wizard or ME priest to be as effective as they can be. And master smiths, okay, so the sad part about master smiths is that they're not quite in the meta. There's a way to make them function, especially if you're like really welled out a character. The problem is that if you took that same investment and put it on a wizard or a ME priest, for example, it is vastly more effective. In a very ideal scenario, you probably wouldn't even have like master smiths or lord knights in a perfect scenario for your guild in composition wise. But one thing that master smiths can do, especially welled out master smiths, is they can build tanky and they can have a devo on them, and they can dive in and start breaking people's gears to enable a push or, you know, stop a push if it's you're doing it to an attacking team. And that's one way that they can be effective. Otherwise, it's your job to chase down people that get through your choke point. And the same thing goes for knights. Your job is just to be a breaker along with master smiths and chase people down that get through your choke point. That's one of your jobs as knight, if you were even allowed into the guild. And same thing with biochemists. You're a very single target oriented class, so it's also going to be your job to take care of the stragglers as well. So when they get past, and this is where discipline comes in, ME priests and wizards, you don't want to chase. You leave it to the LK, so the master smiths, to the snipers, to the champions. Let them chase. I will try to give you some tips on how to attack and how to defend, and explain the concept there a little bit. So tips on how to attack is going to be spotting weaknesses in their defense. What do I mean by spotting weaknesses in their defense? What I'm about to show you here is one of the War of Imperiums that I myself shot called. Actually guested in Mickey D's in another server in NA, because I had spoken to the guild leader at the time who took the reins early on in the guild, and you know, work with them because apparently they were a pretty good guild. It's just that they were getting ganged up on by like multiple guilds, and that was what caused them to like not really have a castle. So we went ahead and gave you the same approach that I'm teaching you today, and then we're gonna go ahead and apply it. So first off, I'll go ahead and show you tips on how to defend, and I'll show you tips on how to attack, and then we're gonna watch a video representation of that after, so you have a better understanding of what we mean here. So let's pretend that this right here is what we're going through, right? This wind tunnel right here. So let's say we're the attacking team. Let's start with attacking first. So let's say we're the attacking team, right? And then let's say that they have their defense line over here, right? And then you have the wind tunnel blowing all the way over here, right? Blowing you back. Let's say that they have their AoEs. They have their AoEs down in this area right here, right? Trying to stop you from getting in. So what I mean by spot their weaknesses is you need to look at where their AoEs are. So let's say that they have an AoE line, for example. You have this AoE right here. Let's say they have a very basic one-dimensional defense line, right? They have like, you know, they have a left side, a middle one, AoE here, and then a right side AoE, because like you're looking from this side when you're in this defense line. So let's say they have that. You need to be able to identify the weaknesses in their defense. You can see this gap, like for example, you can see this gap right here. You go through in the middle of this gap, and then drop your AoE on their defense line over here and start to like chip at their numbers. And then when you've chipped their numbers enough, that's when you usually decide to go ahead and push in. And there's another thing too called the feint, where it basically exposes an unorganized guild and an undisciplined guild. Because a disciplined guild, their left team will always AoE in the left. Their middle team will always AoE in the middle. Their right team will always AoE in the right, right? And if they have a double layered defense, they could have another layer over here to really prevent you from pushing in, right? But like a lot of guilds that are undisciplined will be exposed by this feint, because what you do when you're the attacking team is if all of you go on this side of the wind tunnel. You all attack here. You'll know if they're undisciplined if you do this, and the majority of their AoE start landing on this side as well. Once you see that, you need to have a designated flex team. A flex team with at the very least like one sniper on it and your major AoE carries to pop the wind scroll, the movement speed scroll that you buy from the War of Imperium NPC. You also need to have Windwalker on your sniper so that as soon as the push for the flex team gets called, they can easily either their solo wind scroll, a gale scroll, or their party wind scroll, which boosts everybody's movement speed in the party, plus popping Windwalk, which makes them run really, really fast. They can actually go through here, and while all the enemy AoEs are distracted on this side because they're indisciplined, your flex team can then reach over here where the defenses are, I like to call it like thin. The defenses are thin on that side, which makes you and your guild understand that the defenses on that side is vulnerable, or more vulnerable than it is on the other sides. And then they can drop an AoE on their stack, and then you can start your push in, right? And that is one of the main things that you can do for attacking. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of different approaches to this, but that's going to be a whole new video just by itself when it comes to like different tactics. And you need to pay attention to this because this is also going to play into our tips on how to defend. Your formation when you're attacking will be very similar to how you defend, except you're going to be more mobile this way because you're always moving when you're attacking, right? So let's go over to the defense. So when you're the defending team, let's say that the enemy stack is, let's say they're over here, right? So they're over here, they're taking ground, they want to take over this area right here so they can start wiping you guys. So how do you defend? What's the best formation? What's the best way to defend? So let's say that this area right here is where the wind tunnel starts pushing back. This area right here, right? And then you have your little wind blowing there. Forgive my lack of artistic talent. So your AoEs need to be in this line right here, because you need to start throwing your gravity fields over here. So you need to have a solid defense line, right? So just to give you a bigger picture, let's say that we're looking at this here, right? Like this right here, like this right here. We're gonna display it here. So you need to assign AoE teams based on numbers. Because like if you only have one layer of AoE, right? Let's say like you only have one layer of AoE, then that means that the enemy team can easily go through the gaps here and then put an AoE down on your team, right? If they have a Devo and they have a Suffragium, they can even step into your AoEs and really drop an AoE on your team here, right? Like on your defense lines over here, they can easily drop an AoE here. So you need a double layered defense is what I would like to call it. So what a double layered defense is and how do you produce that is you need to have a double layered defense right there. You can assign this as like, you know, this is let's say like this is group this is AoE defense line 1, AoE defense line 2, AoE defense line 3, 4, AoE defense line 5, let's say that AoE defense line 6. So AoE defense line left side party 1, left side party 4, it's their job to AoE these lines right here, right? And 2, same thing with the middle teams. And you guys saw that from here. You have your squad 1, which is your team A, left side team, right? You can have this team and have this team be like let's say, let's have these teams be team number 4, right? Which is here. Right, let's have these be team number 4, and let's just add some more circles here just to properly represent it, right? Let's do that right there. There you go. Okay, and there you go. Right. So you're gonna have your, let's say this is 4, and this is your 1, and people are assigned to these numbers. This is 5. Right. This is 2. Sorry, I am not an artist at all. That looks like a 1. Okay, never mind. This is your 6, and this is 3 right here. So as long as you have that type of defense, now they can't just walk over here to this gap, because like the only AoEs that would be able to put is in the middle here, which it doesn't really matter. Or they could try to walk past this, but now they have to walk however many layers of AoE you have here. And then they also have to walk forward all the way to the second layer of however many stacks of AoEs that you have there before they can put an AoE onto your team. And that's how you defend, right? And not to mention, earlier when I told you the thing about snipers is, so let's say they manage to like walk all the way here and they're trying to AoE your stack over here. Yeah, but what happens when there's a sniper waiting for them at this spot right here and they're getting shot down? They're getting CC chained. Goodbye, right? Like you get CC chained in a stack of AoEs, you're just gonna die, right? You know, that is why it is very crucial, because you can't gear card against fear and silence at the same time, and both of those CCs will mess you up and cause you to die. And if you're overextended by this much right here, that means they are cut off from their support, which makes it very hard for them to proceed any further. And chances are, when you cut them off from support, they're gonna have to respawn all the way to the spawn point over here. And that's how you defend. And obviously, your priests, your Devo paladins that are trying to Devo you, they're supposed to be in the back here. That way, when an AoE lands on your wizard AoE line stack right there, your priests here are ready to heal, sanctuary, safety wall, Numa, whatever the enemy is attacking with. And if they die, the priest here can instantly res your wizards over here. And they're always safe, right? And then you have your some of your ADLs, maybe snipers, like over here, waiting for somebody who tries to get through. Or your Master Smiths are waiting here, your Lord Knights are waiting over here, your Champs are waiting over here. And if you're aware of a whale that's trying to push forward, you maybe you'll have a Champ over on this side right here, so that when they proceed forward, they can get a sword and they can get cut off from support. So it's, you know, that's a very solid line. And again, discipline. Everybody needs to know what they need to do, and everybody needs to follow that, because if one person doesn't fall in line and doesn't do their job, it could easily cause the collapse of your whole defense lineup. And that's why it's so important. That's the secrets of success. Organization followed by discipline. And then that's it, right? And that is basically a very basic setup for your defense line. And you can easily tweak that in this page right here. You could have this as your squad 1 left side, and you could actually change this to, instead of like squad 2, you could make this whatever number you put on here. So you could make this like squad 4, right? So that people, you can tell them like if you're in squad 4, you're assigned to like AoE 4, right? AoE squad 4, something like that. You can change this to like AoE squad 1 if you want. You don't actually have to put the left on here because, like, you know, purple is automatically left side team. Right, so you can change it up a little bit, whatever you want to assign, however many AoEs you want to assign to like a certain point. And then you also have your flex, because if somebody decides to push on one side, your flex AoEs are the ones that are going to be adjusting, right? So if they approach here, then your flex AoEs can reinforce AoEs here, right? Or the other thing they do too, which is a little bit more advanced, and it takes some actual attention when you're putting down your AoEs, it's a term called tethering. So a term called tethering. There you go. That's what it's called. So this term right here is basically just a fancy word for knowing to run back and forth, right? So if you're in this AoE line, you are running over here, slightly a little bit into, especially if you're on the flex team, you're running forward a little bit, so you can put an even more forward AoE over here, right? Sometimes maybe you'll inch towards this middle place right here and drop another AoE on their heads over here, right? And then you run back right away, right? Now that is very dangerous, because like you could get caught out if you don't know, you know, when to time it, or if you have a bad connection and you lag and the wind tunnel drags you all the way over here and you're cut off from support. Identify your latency, identify your ping, your FPS or whatever, and you know when to tether, right? Because that is a very crucial skill, and identifying however many threats. If you've played a MOBA before, you kind of know the term spacing, which means that you're trying to space yourselves so you don't get hit by enemy skills along the way. So if you have a Devo, it's easier to tether, drop AoEs, and then run back to your stack, right? Because that will ruin the tempo. Because if they're trying to build up here, and now, because if they identify that this is the kill zone, your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 AoEs here, and all of a sudden you're dropping AoEs here, which is supposed to be their safe zone. This is supposed to be their ground, and now you're taking their ground. That's when you start messing them up. And that's just like, you know, like one of the techniques they can do. You can even have, like, as you can see in here, we have our flank team. You can have your flank team AoEs. You can actually disrupt them pretty badly, because this right here, this gate, this is close, right? So this gate, your flank team could easily go through here, hit them from behind, and, you know, concentrate, like, have a coordinated push from your flex team on the defense line and really crush them from there, or, you know, ruin their tempo, or, you know, ruin their planned push because they're trying to regroup, but you're not letting them. And any disorganized or guild is going to be devastated by that continuous harassment. It's probably gonna, like, lower their morale because they keep wiping, they keep trying to regroup, and they can't even get past the choke point, right? And that's part of the defense line. And obviously for your Imperium room, you want to have a combination of, like, champions, and preferably you know, like maybe a class like a Master Smith or ADL Hunter in there. Even like an ME Priest is really good because, you know, the roots and everything, or a Stormgust Wizard, or when, you know, somebody gets through and it gets announced and you know that they've gotten into the Imperial room because the people that chase from the first floor call that out. That's like a major thing that you can call out on, and make sure that they don't get past all the way to the Emp room and then tap your Emp room. Yeah, and I'm gonna show you a video that I actually shot called for. I wasn't in the server, like my really good friends from Mickey D's. So they're a very talented bunch. They're very disciplined. They just lack the organization and the know-how and shot calling. And I went ahead and volunteered to, when I spoke to their leadership, we got along really well. Really amazing people. Still friends with them to this day, and still talk to them to this day. Everything that I've taught them, which ended up working, and this is our first War of Imperium, and I just basically just made a last minute roster for them, and they actually didn't have a lot of paladins. So the fact that this worked without paladins just makes it that much better, because they really were incredibly disciplined. And as I said before, it doesn't matter how good of a plan you have, it doesn't matter how good of a shot call you have. If nobody listens, none of it matters. And these guys really showed up, and they really showed how badly they wanted to compete, and it showed because they ended up winning in this one. So first thing is, we're going to show you an offense here. And as you can see, there's like a bunch of AoEs here. So all these guys, you can see from the get-go, they're very undisciplined. And as I showed you earlier, they have a singular defense line. They have a lot of AoEs stacked, right? And they have a little bit maybe over here, a little bit forward too, but not like an actual dual layer AoE line, right? And so you can see it, everybody's on the right side, and you can see right away on the right side here, they're throwing all their AoEs on there. That's how you know that they're undisciplined. And you can see on the left side here, there's like very thin AoEs. And right away, people knew instantly that this is an opening. The AoE here, the defense here is thin. Very thin AoEs, which means there's a vulnerability in their defense. And you're going to see right away, people are going to run to that left side once it's called. You can see them running over there right now, taking advantage of that spot right there. Right? And you can see, like, now they're putting AoEs on this side as well. They're very reactive. But the thing is, like, they don't have to be reactive if they had a right side team that would actually just cover this to begin with, right? So that there would be no holes in their defense. You have to realize, like, these people actually have more members than the attacking guild at this moment. Right? And then right here, you can see like a feint. And you can see that little gap in the middle there. You can go through this middle part right here and then throw an AoE down on there, which will thin them out even more. And you can see, right, there's AoEs landing on there because there's that gap in defense. And you can see right away, one of their snipers here saw this gap instantly and just shot a sharpshoot through this line right here. And I believe he's very geared. Ewan, I believe his name is. I can read that there. Yeah, he's very geared too, and the fact that he knew how to find an opportunity to AoE, shot a sharpshoot right here, and probably decimated this part of the front line. Right? And now his AoE along with other people's AoE have left an opening here, and now you can see them start to push forward through this gap on the defense on the left. And you can see this little breakthrough happening. And it kind of shows the power of ME Priest at this point in time, because when Magic Tide, which opens up at level 90, it really drastically increases the DPS, or actually not quite the DPS, well the DPS as well, but the burst damage that an ME Priest can do because of the Magic Tide set. And basically that's it right there. Once you break through the defenses here, once you break through the defense, you can get through here. There's a fountain over here. There's an opening on this side right here. So all you really have to do at this point is just go through this. This is the fountain right here. You just have to go, you just have to keep pushing them over to this side right here, and then you have your flank team go over around and pincer them there and just completely wipe them off the map, right? And let's just speed it up a little bit. And this is just to keep get you a give you like a quick overview of like how that offense kind of works, and that's kind of like how you do it. You can see they're completely wiped, so that really shows the importance of having an organized guild. And then towards the end here, we're gonna go ahead and show what a defense looks like. Like huge props to these guys. I told them the same thing that I'm telling you now, and within probably like less than 24 hours, they managed to implement it. And I did very little shot calling at this point, because I was just impressed that they were able to just follow right away, and they were able to identify the plan and then follow the plan and then execute it. And you'll notice here that you're gonna see like a lot of different names. It was actually the whole server here. You can see one of the biggest guilds in the servers, which is like, you can see there's Zenith, Synergy, and the Kaizoku guild that they were attacking before, start to really pile up here. And I've spread at 2.5x, and you can see like they have solid AoE lines. It doesn't matter if the whole of Zenith is on this side and the whole of like Synergy is on this side, on the left side here, because their left side AoEs will always AoE on the left side. There's no holes in that defense. Right side AoEs will always be right. Middle AoEs will always be middle. And the flex teams, when there's a side that's getting overwhelmed, that's where they drop their AoEs. The flex team is the one that's like being reactive. In the meantime, the set teams are making sure that there's no holes in their defense. And basically this is just going to keep going on, and you're just going to see people pouring in. And as we fast forward here, you can see like how many people are attacking here, and towards the end, it's basically a rinse and repeat, like what's happening here. And then you can see them all attacking towards the end here, and these guys just hold, right? Like these are one of the biggest guilds in the server, and they're all coming in and attacking at the same time, and they have like some pretty big whales on their side of the on their guilds as well. And it's just not working, because these guys are just very disciplined. It doesn't matter how many people are on which side, they just always knew to AoE on that side, and that's basically how you hold the defense. So hopefully you guys learned something, and shout outs to Nehru. I told her that I would feature her in this video because she managed to record and upload a copy of this War of Imperium, and then as you can see, it ended and it went all the way. The Imperium kept getting tapped, but that's okay, because there was also an Imperium defense team that took care of them, even though they managed to tap. And we just went through the whole 1 hour War of Imperium with a very intense defense against multiple guilds, multiple big guilds in the server, and they ended up winning. I think this was their first castle in like a month or so, or 2 months or something. And this just the whole guild came together. The whole guild came together, decided that they wanted to win, decided that in order to win, they needed to be organized and they needed to have discipline, and they implemented all that. The same thing that I'm teaching you guys here, and they managed to hold that. So if you want to have those same results, try to implement that same organization and discipline in your guild. And what I'm teaching you is not perfect. It can have different improvisations depending on your comp, depending on how many powerful players that you have, and you can adjust your strategy to that and innovate if you have to. But this is just kind of like a template that I'm teaching you guys, so that way you have a higher starting off point than they did at that time, or we did at beforehand. And my goal here is to raise the skill level of every single guild that decides to watch and implement the things that I'm teaching in this video. And hopefully this helps you in some way and makes your guild feel less confused, have more direction, and just have fun with each other. Because at the end of the day, we're all here to have fun, and War of Imperium is like one of the most funnest game modes that you could possibly do. And hopefully this helps. All right, guys, peace.